It's here. We are redefining what it means to sit at the girls' table. Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Girls Table, and today we have Mahek on to really talk about her story. So first off, Mahek, thanks so much for joining today. I'm so happy to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be on here.
Yeah, of course. And for those who don't know Mahek is a complete badass. Basically, she started off as a computer science student at Purdue University, dropped out after her sophomore year. She then ran a marketing agency. She is also one of the youngest, if not the youngest, to run for mayor in SF. And now she started Skillbank. So we're going to dive into all of it today. But Mahek, I just want to start off, if you just want to give a quick background about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hello everyone. My name is Mehak. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Skillbank. Like Alana mentioned, my personal background is in computer science. I learned how to code. I was going to hackathons a lot on the weekends during my time in college, and I realized that I enjoyed building a lot more than I enjoyed sitting in a classroom. So I dropped out of college, booked a one-way ticket out to San Francisco, and started hustling, working with marketing agencies, VCs, CEOs, learned the ins and outs of growth, and then decided to start a school around that.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm so excited to dive into all that. So I guess when you were going to school for computer science, what did you originally want to be? Like, what was your dream career?
Yeah, I knew going into college that I wanted to be self-employed by the time I graduated. I just didn't know that there was an opportunity to go ahead and start something without actually even needing a college degree. When I realized that out, I was just like, oh, I actually don't even need to be in school anymore, and that's when I dropped out.
Did you meet somebody that kind of had an influence on you or a mentor, or was it just at a point in time, like did an event happen when you're like, wow, I'm not going to go back, this just isn't for me?
Yeah, I actually don't know if I've ever told the story publicly, but I used to run the co-working space at Purdue called the Anvil, and we had a bunch of local startups that were based out of the space, and I ran community for them during my time. And the Purdue Research Foundation, which was funding the Anvil, reached out to me this one weekday and was like, hey, we have this guy who's coming to visit. He's a little bit older, but he graduated from Purdue in the 70s. He's a really successful startup out in the Bay, and we would love for you to meet with him. So I got connected to his assistant, and she wanted me to meet with him at 7 a.m. on a Friday morning. And the night before was a really big party that my friend was throwing. So I kind of ghosted them. And then the lady who was running the Anvil was like, hey, I heard Art's assistant reached out to you. Are you going to meet with him on Friday? And I was like, no. And she was like, no, you need to meet with him. And I was like, okay. So then I emailed him back and I was like, all right, I'll meet with him Friday morning. And I showed up and Art had chocolates waiting for me. It was super sweet. And within 5 minutes of us chatting, he was just like, you need to drop out. This isn't for you. You've been thinking about this for a while. I don't think college is for you. You should go out to the Bay and do your thing. And it's actually because of him, he gave me a job at his company that summer, and I worked for him and was able to get on my feet. And we're still very close to this day. So I'm very grateful for everything that he did for me to get my career started.
And when you told your friends and family, you're just like, hey guys, 2 years in college, more than enough. Thanks for paying. I'm dropping out. What was everybody's reaction?
I first started socializing the idea with my mom right after my freshman year. I had gone out to San Francisco for the Teal Fellowship conference. Are you familiar with the Teal Fellowship?
I am, but for those who aren't, could you explain a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so it's a nonprofit funded by the billionaire Peter Thiel, and he gives 20 people $100,000 to drop out of college that are under the age of 23. So I was a finalist for the program, but I didn't end up getting it. But I went out for the summit that they were throwing right after my freshman year, and that was when I was first socialized with the idea of dropping out, because I was around so many people that had dropped out and had started these multi-million-dollar startups. So coming back from that was when I started talking to my mom about it. But she was like, you need a reason to drop out. Like, we're not just going to let you do it. And then by the time I met Art, I was like, oh, okay, well, this is my reason. And they were really supportive, actually.
And thinking back, do you ever regret it? Are you like, oh, I missed out on the experience that everybody had? Or you're just like, all right, got 2 years out of it and that was more than enough?
Yeah, I definitely got the college experience while I was there, for sure. But also, I was really fortunate that around the time I dropped out of college, the dropout community in SF specifically was actually really small. There was maybe like 150 to like 200 people that were like around my age. So we all kind of like flocked together. And SF in 2016 kind of felt like a college campus almost, where I'd like see a lot of my friends out and about, and people I'd be like hanging out with on the weekends. So I kind of got that college experience in a city while we were all building our own thing.
Would you usually recommend to kids nowadays to drop out? You don't really see the value in education, or do you still feel like it's good to go at least for a little and then maybe after a year or two, then get out?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the person. If you're someone who needs a lot of structure, I think college is still like a really good idea to go to. What we've seen, especially with Skillbank students, is people that are a lot younger that are very clear and like, I want to go work at a marketing agency, and they have a very clear idea of what they want their career path to look like. They actually do really well outside of college. I think if you're still trying to explore and you're trying to figure out where you want to go, I think college can still be a really good opportunity. I think it just really depends on like what your career path is and what your life story is.
And where do you see kind of education in 20 years? Because obviously this all has to do with Skillbank and everything they are building now. So do you see it where we're going to be spending $250,000 just to go to university to get a degree that's just, at the end of the day, somebody like you where it just wasn't necessary?
I think COVID actually really changed the mindset around this. I think before COVID, college was still seen as something that was necessary and super important, and then you saw all of these students that were sitting at Zoom at home paying $50,000 per year to go through to these universities, and I think it forced us as a nation to take a look at college education and think like, what is actually the role that these universities are playing in our day-to-day lives, and can I actually go out and land a job without this degree? So I think we're starting to see a really big shift in the market where people that are wanting to pick up more trade skills, or they're wanting to go into marketing or computer science. A lot of these job platforms now and a lot of companies are really just looking for people that have experience. They're not looking for people specifically that have a high GPA or a good degree. And if you're looking at even companies like Google, Apple, Facebook, like they actually even ask that you don't put your GPA anymore in your resume. There was a really big press release that came out about that a couple of years ago. So yeah, we're seeing a really big shift. I don't think we're completely there where it's like college isn't necessary at all, but I would also say that I think people are starting to realize what role college actually plays in the job prep process.
100%. I think even myself, I was one of those people that's like, oh my God, I have to go to college. Like my kids are going to college. Like college is necessary. And maybe it was COVID, but over time, like, and as I've grown in my career, I'm like, is it really necessary to get that college degree? Like I could have gone out in the workforce and learned so much more than I ever would have in those 4 years of college. I believe that I grew personally, but I also don't believe that that was worth $250,000 to go.
No, for sure. My parents were also paying out of state for me as well, and I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I already know how to code, so like, why am I here?
Yeah, my parents were paying as well. Then you think back and you're like, wow, what could I have done? And that's why Peter Thiel is so interesting, because it's like, okay, he takes $100,000, he basically pays you what your parents would pay in college, and he lets you go try to build whatever you want. And
yeah, and college isn't going anywhere either. And this was the thing that I said to my parents, where I was just like, look, I'd actually much rather that whatever you guys are spending for me to go to college, if everything doesn't work out and I need a fallback plan, I would much rather that actually like you guys took that money and gave it to me to figure things out in SF. And I was like pretty fortunate with art and just like getting Jamocha off the ground that I didn't need it, but it was always nice to know that I had that backup plan just in case.
And did you ever have any small like side hustles growing up that you did? Because you really just seem like a hustler, at least now after dropping out of college. Like, I'm curious if you ever had any jobs growing up.
Yeah, so all through high school, I was a soccer ref for the local like club teams. So I would go on Saturdays at like 8 a.m. and be there till 6 or 7 p.m. and ref games. And it was pretty good money, actually. It was like, if I remember correctly, it was like $12 for 8-year-olds per game, all the way up to like $35 for games for people that were 14 or older. So
wow.
I would go in and like, yeah, just make a bunch of money reffing games over the weekends. And that's actually how I bought my first laptop. Was my first Mac was just reffing soccer games my freshman year of high school.
So cool. Yeah, I feel like you'd be the person who had the side hustle. So then you dropped out of college, you moved to SF, you meet Art, and you're working on his project. So when did you decide, hey, I'm actually going to go ahead and start a marketing agency now?
Yeah, so I had actually started Jamocha while I was at Purdue. So Jamocha originally was a company that I had started with a classmate of mine to service all of the startups that were at Purdue. We had a couple of companies that were at the Anvil that had gone through YC, and I really wanted to get more tapped into the space, but I didn't have an idea. So I was just like, all right, I'm just going to start running social media for all of these companies and start building websites. So my classmate's name was Jay. So yeah, Jay and I just started servicing all of these different startups at Purdue. And when I dropped out, my idea specifically was just like, all right, I want to build Jamocha. So while I was working at Nor One, which was Art's company, I was also just trying to hustle and sign as many customers and contracts that I could. And I would like sneak into VC parties. That was like the way that I had started to initially get my footing in. I realized that like as a 19-year-old, people aren't going to kick you out of parties. If you're like, hey, I'm like here and I want to learn. So I was like, okay, how can I use my age to my advantage? And I really did. I guess I go to these parties and like start talking to the partners and just be like, hey, I just moved here. Like, can I work for like one of your companies, or like, can I do contract work? And yeah, that was just like how I got things started, and Jamocha took off from there maybe about a year later.
Wow. And did you ever get kicked out? Were they like, you're 19?
No, never actually. And really funny full circle moment. One of the first venture parties that I went to was Foundation Capital's venture party event, and it was like their summer party, and one of the partners there like was like, hey, are you guys supposed to be here? And I was like, no, but like we started chatting, and he actually was one of the first investors in Skillbank. So it's like a really cool full circle moment that I always tell people now, you just have to show up and like just go to events, just like try to put your name out there, because you never know when further down the line a relationship is going to actually like pan out into something really exciting for both you and that person.
And how many people actually agreed from those events to make an introduction so that you could get some clients at your company?
It was quite a few. Like, I think I had a higher hit rate than I would say that people, I don't think actually anyone ever told me no. I did have people when they were like, because at 2016, it wasn't really cool to drop out. Like, I feel like now it's a little bit cooler. But I would have partners say things to me, like, at these parties along the lines of, like, go back to school. Like, don't waste your time here. Like, get your degree and then, like, come back in a couple of years. But yeah, I actually, at one of these parties, had a partner that, like, was like, yeah, like, you're wasting your time, and was, like, kind of aggressive about it. And then a couple of years later, I ran into him at another party, and he was like, I was wrong. You're doing well. And, like, yeah, like, you proved me wrong.
I
like,
love that.
Oh, yeah.
When you heard that, though, like, obviously you have this part of you that's so confident. You're like, you know what? I'm doing it right. I'm working for art. I'm starting my own company. You're probably starting to get success of that. But, like, hearing that from partners, are you ever like, shoot, like, what did I do? Like, why am I here? Maybe you're right. Like, did you ever have...
Oh, 100%. And I think actually this is where my parents were, especially my mom, was like really helpful for me. I remember like I'd call her whenever I'd have like a bad client call or a bad meeting or whatever, and instead of being like, see, like, this is the reason why I should go back to college, or what I've heard other parents say to my friends that like have dropped out. Instead it was like, hey, this is business. You're gonna have people that are like voting against you. You're gonna have people that like don't believe in you, but you just like have to stick the course, and you're gonna figure it out. And I think having that like emotional support system was so helpful to me. I remember throughout that time, I think I spoke to her like 2 to 3 times a day, because I just like really needed that emotional support at that time.
And did your mom go to college? Because she sounds like somebody that wouldn't go but became successful. Or did she not go to college?
Yeah, so my mom did. She got her master's in Hispanic literature when she was in India. And then when she moved to the US, she's also a hustler. She was like one of the top 50 sellers for Pampered Chef. She was like one of the biggest real estate agents in our town growing up. But I just watching her throughout her career, she's tried so many different things. But has like been successful at every single thing that she's taken on. And she's really instilled those values into me and my 2 little sisters, where it's just like, you have to work hard, you have to make a life and a career for yourself, and like don't depend on anyone else to do that for you. So yeah, I'm really grateful that she did that for us at such an early age.
That's definitely amazing to hear. And the side, because I feel like my parents, like, as much as they want to support me, they would have been one of those where it's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have dropped out. Like, college was the way to go. Like, they definitely were parents that push it. So that's awesome to hear. And probably just like having that in the back of your head definitely helped push you through, because I can only imagine, like, especially when you hear those partners and when you hear other people being like, ooh, maybe you should go back. And so what made you ultimately decide to stop doing Jamocha? And when did you run for mayor? Like, I just want to tap into that. Like, what happened there?
Yeah, so the mayor stint was probably maybe a year and a half into my time into San Francisco. Stopping Jamocha was maybe like a few years after that. I guess I'll touch on the mayor thing first, and then we can move into Jamocha. I had figured out at Purdue the best way to garner an audience was I had figured out how to create content with like Purdue and like that name in all of my titles. So by the end of my sophomore year, I was pulling in anywhere from like 15 to 20,000 views a month at Purdue University alone. And these were from incoming students, current students, and I had built up like this rep as like being the YouTube girl on campus. And that's how we got a lot of our business. So I was like, all right, how do I take over SEO for the city of San Francisco? Which sounds really silly and stupid, but yeah, I was like, okay, to run for mayor, you have to be 18 years old and registered to vote in the city. So those are both really easy things because I'd been living in SF for longer than 6 months and I was over 18 years old. So one morning I just like woke up, went straight to City Hall and filed the paperwork. And 3 weeks later I woke up and I was like on the front page of the paper. So it was just like this like very quick like thing. I'd highly recommend to anyone that wants to do something like that to not do it unless you like really want to go into politics. I opened myself up to a lot of scrutiny and like getting yourself into politics as well. You could just get a lot of people that are trying to like push their agendas and a lot of hit pieces and like it. I was a kid, so like to me at the time it was like it was fun, but looking back on it, I'm just like, yeah, I don't think I could do that again.
Did you actually go through with it and like start running, or it was just strictly fill it in?
No, I just filed and announced, and then I did set up like a bank account to start fundraising for it. But I think there was like a few hit pieces that came out about me that I like wasn't expecting. One was like from the SFist, and it was like amateur rap artist runs for mayor, and it was because I had like dropped some like parody at some point about startups, and they had like clicked it and then like put it out.
I'm gonna be looking that up later, just so you know.
It's a funny article. It's like looking back on it now, I'm just like, that's amazing. And then there was another like political magazine that had posted an article, and at the time this was when like the like Jake Paul like excuse my language, but like, yeah, like fuck the media kind of thing was like really big. It was like 2016. So I was like, all right, like what are some like funny things I could do? So I like go into this meeting with this publicist, and she's like, what district are you from? And I'm like, District 12. And then like in the article, she's like, from like Hunger Games, like in the article, she's like, Mahek said she's from District 12 and there's only 11 districts, and by the way, she lives in District 10.
Oh my god.
It's just like this like funny thing where like I think they didn't quite realize I was trolling them. And yeah, at the time I thought it was funny, but like as I've like gotten older as well, I'm just like, maybe it wasn't like the best use of my time.
Yeah, that's still so interesting that you did that. So then you were running Jamocha, and I guess, were you a creator at the time? Like, you obviously had this following, you were able to tap into so many networks. What was that like?
Yeah, so my audience was mainly at Purdue and then within the hackathon scene. So as when I was going to these college hackathons, I would vlog my life and share stories about like, this is what the hackathon was like, and look at what we built, look at what we did. So yeah, I did bring that audience out with me. Around the time I decided to run for mayor, I was also creating content on Quora. And that year I was one of the top writers on Quora. I was pulling in like millions of views every single month. And one of my friends, his name is Josh Vector. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he used to run a growth marketing community on Facebook called Badass Marketers and Founders, BAMF. And me and him ran this Facebook group, and he'd come over to my house every day and co-work with me. And Josh one day was like, hey, you know, all of these answers that you're posting on Quora, you should post them on LinkedIn as well. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I like never thought of LinkedIn as being a platform. So I just started like copying and pasting my answers from Quora onto LinkedIn. And within the first like 3 months, I started also pulling in millions of views on that platform. And I met this girl. We ended up having the first video to like ever go viral on LinkedIn because we got early access. And I did like LinkedIn content creation. So I was like a really big LinkedIn creator for like 2.5 to 3 years, pulling in anywhere from like 2 to 5 million views.
Wow. Did you monetize through that at all, or was it strictly then to get clients?
It was strictly to get clients. So after my LinkedIn started to gain a lot of traction, I realized because there wasn't a lot of people posting content, if I went in and liked someone's post or commented on it, I could actually drive my audience to see their post because it would show up in their feed. So we tested this out with a few people where I'd take them from 0 to 50,000 views like overnight by just like commenting on something. So I built a bot that would log into all of my clients' accounts, and we'd go in and like each other's content. So by the end of 2018, I like to say I was running the black market for LinkedIn views. We were ghostwriting for a lot of prominent CEOs and VCs in the Bay Area on LinkedIn. And that was what Jamocha just ended up pivoting into completely. So like we were a LinkedIn agency by the time I
Yeah, so then what made you ultimately decide to shut the doors?
LinkedIn's algorithm was changing a lot. So from 2017 through to the beginning of 2019, it was pretty predictable that like, okay, if I post content like this, I know it's going to work. The platform got a lot more saturated. We started seeing a lot more people creating content that wasn't of value on the platform, but like to garner clicks and views. So posting on LinkedIn and becoming a LinkedIn creator kind of lost the, what's the word for it? It lost the, like the oomph that it had before of like being able to pull in that audience. And a lot of our clients just like weren't happy with the audience that it was pulling in. In March of 2019, LinkedIn also changed their algorithm pretty drastically. So even like the views that I was able to promise our clients just like wasn't actually possible. And we had that happen once before, and we like switched up the way the content was done. But I just realized I was at mercy to a platform that I just didn't want to like be creating content on anymore. Like it was a completely different audience from when I had started the platform. And I wanted to build something bigger and something like more exciting. And I had worked with so many companies and startups at that point in VCs that I realized I had enough of a network to go off and start my own thing. And a really big thing that I found was it was just really hard for us to find talent. And I had so much trouble with learning marketing just to start that I was like, okay, let's start a growth marketing school. And that's what led me into starting on
So
Delta,
when you started
which is now
Skillbank versus when you quit Jamocha, did you take any breaks? Like, were you burnt out at this point? I mean, now it's a couple years in your career. You haven't really taken a break.
I did. So towards the end of Jamocha, we were doing really well, and I had figured out a way to automate everything. So I was only actually working 3 to 4 hours a week for the last like 6 to 8 months of the company, and I was traveling. So like I moved to Europe for 3 months. I like moved to New York for another like 3 or 4 months. And yeah, I got my break then before deciding to actually just like shut the company down because it was like I was like 21 or 22 at the time, so it was just like, all right, yeah, like if there's really like any time for me to just kind of like go crazy and like spend a bunch of money and like do what I want to do, like now's the time to do it. And I knew going into starting a startup, like if I wanted to do it seriously, I really had to hunker down and like do that. So yeah, I got that break.
I love that. At least you took a break, and then you're starting Skillbank. Did you start with everybody, or are you a solo founder?
I'm a solo founder. I've had people along the way though that have been with me since I started the company. So starting Skillbank, I brought over the girl who was doing customer service stuff with me. So she started helping me with managing the new students that were coming in and helping me out there. And then one of our investors that I actually met through Quora, who was like our first investor, he's like still involved with Skillbank to this day. So I had a lot of help in the beginning, just in terms of like moving people over and like people that were excited to.
Yeah. All right. So I know we touched on this a little in the beginning, but let's just talk a little bit more. What is Skillbank?
Yeah. So Skillbank is a rapid training program, and we've coined this term, but very simply it's videos that are in a masterclass style that you review on your own time, and then you get paired up with a marketing mentor who then reviews your projects and your curriculum. So by the end of the program, you have this whole library of content that you've gone through. You have a mentor that's on your side that has like helped you with giving you feedback on your projects. And then we also connect you with a career services person. So we formed this whole team around you to help you go into landing your full-time marketing job.
So you had this idea, which sounds absolutely awesome. What were the next steps? Did you just raise right away, or did you first build out a team, get customers, and then raise?
Yeah, so I took all of my savings from Jamocha and used that to fund the first 8 months of Skillbank. And then this investor that I mentioned, who I met through Quora, was really excited about what I was building and fronted, I think, or invested like the first $35K. So that got me through till like the summer of 2020. And by that point, I had been introduced to Jason Calacanis. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's an investor. He has one of the biggest business podcasts in the world, the All In podcast. And I was introduced to him and his team. And they ended up inviting me into their accelerator the summer of 2020 and invested $100K. And then from there, we were able to raise our pre-seed round.
And the one that just got announced, is that your pre-seed, the 1.5 mil? Awesome. Congratulations.
Yes.
I really just saw that, and you on Forbes too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was really exciting. We'd been working with the writer to put that article out.
Wow, I just had to
March,
look at the calendar.
Really
I'm like,
cool
wow, we're in July.
Yeah, it's been a minute. But yeah, it's cool. Being on Forbes has like always been a dream of mine. So actually like getting that article to come out was a cool.
Yeah, I
cool
love that. So then how'd you get the first individuals to actually want to try this out? Because I guess for them, it's like you don't pay up front, you pay once you actually get a job, correct? And then you pay back?
Yeah. So that was the original model when I first started the company. I started cold messaging people on LinkedIn. So it was like anyone that had like hashtag open to work or any of those hashtags in their bio, I would just cold message them and say like, hey, can I teach you how to do marketing and help you land a job? Completely free up front. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, like, it won't. And I finally got this like one kid in Texas to say like, yes, you can teach me. So for like the first summer, this was like in 2019, I woke up with him every morning at 6 a.m. because he had to get to work at 8:30 a.m. And I taught him class for 2 hours. And that was how we built out the first
Did you
iteration
record
of
the
curriculum.
videos, or was it all manual? Okay, so were those the first videos that you showed the next customer, or then you still do it manually?
No, so Skillbank actually for like the first 2 years has like, or was a live boot camp, so where we had like cohorts and start dates and the ISA model or income share agreement model where it's completely free up front, and then after you graduate and land a job, you start to pay us back. Once we pivoted into the video model, that's when we decided to also switch the financing options because it's a lot cheaper now to service our fellows. So that's when we were like, all right, we can switch things up a little bit, drop the prices.
So what happened with him? Because he already had a job, I guess, that he was doing when he was working with you.
He was working at an amusement park at the time. And yeah, I think within like 4 or 5 months, he landed a full-time job and he now works as
Oh my God, I love that. So how many people have gone through Skillbank?
Yeah, so I don't know the exact number, but it's definitely like in the
That's
hundreds.
incredible. And so now it's all manual, so they actually do pay a cost. But then what if they can't get a job after?
Yes. Yeah, so the way the program's structured is the pricing is you pay us like a fee up front as low as $300 all the way up to completely up front for $5,000. And depending on how much you pay us up front is how much you pay us on the back end. And then if you pay us the $300 model, payments actually don't start until 3 months after you started the program. So what we've seen actually so far is every student that has like wanted to land a job has been able to land a job within the industry standard like 180 days in education. So we just tell all of our students that like if you take the program seriously, you like do our curriculum, you take advantage of the resources that we provide you, and then also like we'll introduce you to agencies. So like you show up to those and do a good job there, you'll land a job. And all of the students that have taken our program
congratulations. That's incredible. So what's your dream for it? Like what would be your goal eventually?
Yeah, so I want to build the biggest next generation version of what a community college looks like. And I don't think it looks like how we see it today, where you like show up, you go into a classroom. Instead, it's, I really want to go into marketing, so I'm going to go and like learn these skills and then go land this job. So we're just teaching paid media right now, which is Facebook, Google, Amazon, and Apple ads, and we help you get certified across those platforms. But going into the future, we plan on launching an organic course, a lifecycle marketing course, operations courses, HR courses, sales courses. So we want to be like a Skillbank where within 12 weeks you can come to us, pick up a skill, and then go land a job, or come back to us, upskill.
I love it, because at one point in my career I was like, maybe I want to learn coding. Then you look and there's so many options, but it's like if everybody knows you're the go-to, but then you also help with getting a job. So maybe it's not just a hobby, but you actually want to go ahead and switch your career. I think that's really amazing. So also I want to ask from kind of the people who are founders listening today, is there any advice you have for people trying to raise money? Like you were able to use so much of your connections and your network, and apart from kind of sneaking into parties and trying to get in, which is honestly a great way, but is there anything that you did specifically?
It's really like it comes down to building relationships. So like our first investor, Nelson Wang from that I met through Quora, my first like engagements with him actually like didn't really have anything to do with Skillbank. I was like helping out another investment of his with like building a website just to like help me with like making a little bit more money to fund the business. And he saw that I was doing really good work there, and then he made introductions for me, and like it just slowly snowballed. So I would say that like anyone in your life that you're like you think could like be a good mentor to you, look to for advice, like build those relationships, because you never know how they're going to pan out. I think the other thing too is people go into fundraising expecting like, okay, I know this person's going to invest in me, I know this person's going to invest in me, and then they start taking the meetings, and then the person actually doesn't want to invest, or like it doesn't actually end up panning out the way that they expected it to. And I found that actually most of our investors were people that I had not met before I had started the round. They were like introductions of introductions of introductions. So I think if you you stick the course, it's a numbers game, and you have a very clear idea of what your product is and what you're trying to sell, you will be able to find money. I think, yeah, it's just like there's thousands, if not like tens of thousands of VC firms now. So it's really just about finding.
And I guess in terms of mentors, like how were you able to find some? Because I actually have a very close friend of mine. She's starting a company, and right now she's struggling to find that mentor that's really going to help guide her. So who's some of yours, and how did you really get connected with them?
Yeah, it's all been very organically for me. I've never specifically asked anyone to be my mentor, but I would say Nelson's been a really big mentor of mine. He's the person that I go to and I call for advice, and now my investors are mentors in a way, and people that I can turn to. I did do this thing last year where I reached out to all of my investors that are part of funds, and I was like, hey, I want to meet more founders here in LA that are one step ahead of me, because I want to be able to really strongly visualize what the next step of Skillbank is supposed to look like. And I don't know what it looks like because I just haven't been exposed to what a Series B style company looks like. So can you introduce me to the most badass founders that you know in LA that are at that stage? And that's how I've made a lot of my friends out here, was just through asking for connections. But yeah, I think if you also have ways that you can provide value to other people, you'll eventually start to find people that can also provide value to you. So even Nelson, it didn't start off as a mentorship relationship. I was actually doing work for him and building out a website for him.
It's crazy because you really never know who you're going to be, and then the effect that they could have on you. And then what's been your biggest struggle? Was there ever a point in time where you were really just going to give up, throw in the towel? It just wasn't working out as planned?
It's really funny. No. And I think the really big reason for that is because, and I said this to my investors when I was raising for Skillbank, is I am Skillbank. If the company dies, it's because there's something very seriously wrong with me. And I think there's maybe something unhealthy in that, and tying yourself so deeply into what you're building and making that your identity. But I seriously enjoy building and working on this company so much that I will do anything I possibly can to keep this going and get this to the next stage. And yeah, I think there was a point between going through Jason's accelerator and fundraising where I was tens of thousands of dollars in debt, but it's just I knew in that moment that it was just okay, I know we're on the path to figuring this out, so I'm not super concerned about the direction it's going. It's just I need to take this risk now.
Can you touch a little on that? So you were in debt. What was
and
that?
Yeah, it's kind of yeah, it's so after I ran through all of my Jamocha money reserves, we still had people that we were working with, costs, there was so many things. So I took out the Chase Freedom Reserve card because they have a 20K max balance, and at the time I hadn't quite built up my credit score yet. So yeah, I was just my boyfriend at the time, I would request him for my rent, and then he would pay it, or I think I would pay him my rent, and then he would send it back to me, and that's how I got cash. And that's how I like fronted myself for like 3 or 4 months to like put money into my bank account.
How much did you put on your credit card?
Yeah, I think like it wasn't super crazy. I think it was like $20K, but I mean, like at the time, like for being like completely broke, like it was pretty scary. It's like, like we can't figure this out. Like I don't know, like what.
Did you like go out a lot with friends? Were you strictly just like, I have $20,000 in debt right now. I don't have any way to pay it. Like I basically just need to stay home and work on Skillbank, and we'll see what happens.
No, I still like, it's really funny. I have a Labradoodle, and around this time I was like, I felt really drawn to like wanting to get a dog. So like I bought Olive on credit cards, which is like so silly. Like looking back on the time, I'm just like, that was like such a
emotional support dog.
Like why did I do that? But yeah, no, it's like probably the best purchase I've ever made. Like she's like my best friend, and like has been there for me like throughout this whole building process. But yeah, I just like I had so much faith in the next stage of the process and like that we were working towards.
I love that. You're not the first founder to have done that too. It was Airbnb or Uber that really put so much debt on their credit cards. Well, just to end it off, I was wondering, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received, and who was it from?
Honestly, like the biggest piece of advice that I've received from people hasn't actually been like one like specific thing, but it's been for me more like I've gotten a lot of advice just around like how to like make sure that like we're like conducting the business in the right way, or like having people to like run ideas off of. I think we're in such an interesting space and like such a controversial space when it comes to education that like I like sometimes try to toe that line a little bit with my content. So it's like I have people around me that are like, hey, like maybe we should like tone it back on the content a little bit, or like maybe we should try this out a little bit more. So I just have like a lot of people around me that are like being that like those second eyes on like what I'm doing.
And if you could sit next to anybody at the girls' table, who would it be? I'm asking you the hard questions now.
Ooh. Yeah. I've been like really into music recently, and I think that there's like a lot of like musicians that have been really inspiring me. I'm listening to a lot of Gracie Abrams recently. So like love to sit next to her and like just talk to her about what her like music writing process is like.
Awesome. Well, Mahek, I just want to end it. Any last minute advice for listeners? Anywhere the listeners can follow you and find you?
Yeah, if you want to follow me, I'm at It's Mehak Vohra across all social platforms. And biggest piece of advice would just be have faith in yourself, like if you can like really truly feel something inside you and it feels like it's the right thing for you to do, take that leap, jump for it, and like things.
I love that. Well, thanks for coming on the girls' table. Appreciate it.